Hey there, John Laspina, the Carnivore teacher, and I'm going to make a meal for you. This is my first meal of the day, and the first meal is a break fast. The last time I ate was dinner last night at 6 o'clock, and my first meal today is now at 11 o'clock a.m. And then my next meal will be 6 o'clock tonight. I eat 2 meals a day, no snacks in between. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my pasture-raised eggs, and I like to take a coffee cup, and I like to break them in the coffee cup, like this. That way I can put them in my pan in one drop instead of breaking them and putting them in the pan one by one. I'd like to do it this way. And I'll just do 4 today. Sometimes I do 3 eggs and 2 egg yolks, but I'll do 4 whole eggs today just to show you. Okay, and I set that aside. I'm going to have some salmon. I take my salmon, my wild-caught sockeye salmon, and it's a long piece of salmon, and I cut it up and I put them into baggies. Some go in the freezer, some go in the refrigerator. That's the small portion I'm gonna have today. And last night we had some lamb loins. They look like little mini T-bone steaks. They're so good and much cheaper than lamb chops. So I cut the lamb loins up into little pieces, the leftover lamb loins, and that's gonna go as part of my meal. I'm gonna first put this suet. This is just cut fat that I took from picanha. You know, that big lip of fat on picanha? I cut it up and I put it in here, and I use it and add more fat to my meals. I also have my pasture-raised butter and my Redmond real salt. And I use a paint scraper as my spatula part of the way. And I will show you how that works. Somebody showed me this trick and I really, really like it. Okay, so turn my light on. First thing I'm gonna do is heat up my pan and put some of my fat that I took from picanha. Just put that in there, maybe about that much fat. And we'll get this camera here closer so you can see. Okay, so there's my pan, and I gotta get my pan heated up. I'm also gonna add a little butter to that fat, because man, do I like the fat. I do. I embrace fat now. So add a little butter, and I'm gonna give that some time to heat up and melt. Look at all that great fat. Okay, now I'm gonna take my cut up lamb loins, dump it in there. See, I like this paint scraper because I can cut while I'm in the pan if I wanna cut things a little bit more. Anything starts to stick, I just scoop and scrape. The other spatula that I use is a bamboo wooden one. Okay, I don't ever use plastic. Never use plastic. The BPA's come off of the plastic and get into the food. So I will use this and scoop it around, and scoop it up and put it on my plate. But I also use this tool, plain old paint scraper. Move it around, cut it, constantly scrape the bottom of my pan. I really like that tip that someone gave me. And since this is already cooked, I'm just reheating it and melting the fat a little bit. That's all. Now I'm gonna put it onto my plate, on the side of my plate, like this. Okay. And I like to put it onto the side of the plate because on the other side I'm going to put my salmon. All right, now I'm going to add a little tiny bit of butter to the edge here, because this is where I'm going to cook my salmon. Now the salmon needs to be cooked. The meat was already cooked, so I got to get my salmon cooked. So I'll take it out of the bag. There's the salmon. I love the skin. Skin's the best part, actually. And I start with the non-skin part first. And I kind of look at the edges. I look at the edges on the side, and when they're about a little less than halfway cooked, then I flip it, and then I start cooking my eggs. I like my salmon to be rare in the middle, where it's still kind of red, reddish pink. I don't like a cooked salmon that's dry. And I'll show you in a minute when I flip it what it looks like. While I'm waiting, I'm gonna take some salt and salt my meat. Salt to taste. Okay, here's where the paint scraper comes in handy, because it will stick a little bit. So I like a paint, like you're scraping paint, you scrape underneath. Then I kind of put it to the side a little bit so that I can add a little bit more butter in that spot. A little bit more butter for when I flip it. And then you can see the edges are starting to cook. See the side there, how it's darker and still red. Now I flipped it onto the skin. And I put a little butter on top of it. You can never have too much butter. Am I right? Okay, now I'm going to put a big hefty scoop of butter in the pan. Okay. And let's back that out a little bit there so you can see. And I learned to let the butter melt until the bubbles disappear. See all the bubbles? And I'll let it till it disappears. This one's still cooking. Now I'm going to take, the bubbles are still there. It's starting to bubble down. Now I'm going to just take my eggs, and instead of cracking one by one, and the first one gets cooked more than the fourth one, they're all going to be dumped in at once. See that? Okay, I like to salt them while they're cooking, so I put a little salt on my eggs this way. Salt is finished. And I like my eggs to be, the whites are solid and the yolks are runny. So I do an over easy. And then I put them on top of, not next to, I put the eggs on top of my meat so that the yolk breaks into the meat that I just cooked. Then I keep an eye on the salmon because different pieces of salmon have different thicknesses and I don't like mine overcooked. So I'm looking at the edges while I'm cooking these eggs, and I want to make sure that I don't overcook my salmon. So I'm probably going to take the salmon off soon. The whites of my eggs are getting opaque. Sometimes I do this to get all the butter evenly distributed, and sometimes on top of the eggs as well as underneath the eggs. Gonna flip my salmon now. There it is, and it goes on my plate. Okay, so there's the plate so far. And now I just have to add my eggs. I'm gonna start flipping. Let's see if I can flip these without breaking the yolk. I just broke a yolk. Let me turn my heat off. I broke 2 out of the 4. It happens, right? And then I line my plate up right next to my skillet. I take my bamboo spatula and I scoop up the eggs right on top of the meat. Right on top of the meat. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Right on top of the meat. Now I take my paint scraper. Just scrape the rest of the pan. Not much really sticks. And then I scoop the rest of this delicious fat and butter right on top. So I'm getting all the fat that I put in there. And so there's my meal, ladies and gentlemen. Yum. All right. I get to eat my first meal. Look at that, isn't that delicious? Doesn't look like something in a fancy schmancy restaurant, but I like it. First thing I like to do is peel the salmon skin off of my wild caught sockeye salmon. And that is just, to me, it's like candy. It's so good. It's crispy from the butter. All the omega-3 fatty acids and the fish are, a lot of it are in the skin, and it's just so good. I'm recording eating the meal, so if you hear me talking, I'm talking to my camera. So this has a red coloring in it. And the red coloring in lobster and shrimp and salmon is called astaxanthin, a very healthy antioxidant. My omega-3s, protein, healthy fats. And I like to eat all my salmon first before I tackle my eggs and meat. I also filmed myself making it. Perfectly done. This is the perfect, let me show you. This is what rare in the middle looks like on a salmon. See it? It's cooked, but it's rare in the middle. So good. When I eat my food every day, if I record myself, I'll hear myself saying, yum. I really do enjoy my food. All right, next up is my meat and eggs. Oh, look at that. Let the yolks break over the meat. And remember, this is lamb loins from last night. Always make more than was needed, so there's leftovers. And I take a piece of the egg and the yolk and the lamb loin. I'm dripping all over as I try to show you in the camera. So good. Now tonight, we're having ribeye steaks that are now dry brining in the refrigerator on a rack. I poked holes in them, I aerated it, added my Redmond real salt, and they sit on the rack for about 8 to 10 hours. Perfect amount of salt, perfect amount of fat and butter. Oh my gosh. So satisfying. And when I eat this, it's not like the way I ate 5 years ago. I want to find something that looks good and tastes good and it didn't matter about the nutrition. This I know has all of the amino acids that make up a complete protein, all of my fatty acids, omega-6 and omega-3 in a healthy ratio, my fat-soluble vitamins, my water-soluble vitamins, and all my minerals right here in this plate. It's so good. So yes, today I did lamb. Now because we're doing ribeyes tonight, tomorrow's first meal of the day will be almost the same meal I make today, except we'll have pieces of ribeye left over that I'll cut up. I'm also making bone broth as we speak. My crock pot has all these bones from beef ribs, the lamb loin bones, they look like little T-bones, and other bones from all the meals in a big Ziploc bag in the freezer, put them in the crock pot, add water, I add some electrolytes, get some minerals, and right now in my crock pot, I'm making bone broth and it'll be done by 8 o'clock tonight. I put them on at 8 o'clock this morning. I do about 12 hours on high. Then I'll pour it all through a sieve and I'll harvest it. And then some lunches, I don't do this. I do a soup. And you can see my video on how to make bone broth soup. I basically put a lot of the ingredients I have in here into the bone broth soup. You ever go, while you're eating? I never said, when I was eating cereal. I never said, when I was eating pizza, or macaroni and cheese, or McWendy Kings. When I eat this food, this is real food. I can't stop vocalizing how delicious it is. And satisfying. I can feel my body absorbing the nutrition. I'm starting to get full, but I'm not full yet. And how do I know? My leptin signals are being sent to my brain slowly. And this does not taste as good as it did when I first started. Which means my body's telling me I'm starting to not need any more. If the feeling gets stronger, I stop right here. And I throw the rest of this out or I save it for later. But the feeling's very weak right now, so I'm going to keep eating it. And I'm looking at this egg yolk, and I can't not eat it. It's so good. Oh, God, look at that. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? How can you not like that? Should I lick the plate? Have I ever licked the plate? It's so tempting. Because we don't have bread to sop up the egg yolks, do we? And so I'm so tempted. So if I'm around people, I do this and I just scoop it up. But when I'm by myself and nobody's looking, I do this. I do. See that? I got a little bit of my beer, but who cares? I mean, and nobody saw me. I didn't do this in a restaurant. And now it's cleanup time. I basically wipe out my cast iron skillet, and then I coat it with some butter or bacon fat for the next use. I store it in my oven. And what do I have to wash? I have my paint scraper. I have my fork and my spoon, which I rinse. I throw it in the dishwasher, and the plate goes in the dishwasher. I'm done. I'm finished. And the kitchen's not that dirty. And how long did that take me? It didn't take me that long. It is slower than going through the drive-thru at McDonald's. But the nutrition and the satisfaction and the sustainability of this is what we're meant to eat. So I hope you enjoyed coming along with me for making a meal and eating the meal. And I hope you'll join me in my next video. Have a great day, everybody.